we resume the session with another technical presentation. National Infrastructure Pipeline and Public-Private Partnerships. Funding presentation by Dr. Kishore, CFO, Bekem Infraprojects Private Limited, Hyderabad. Dr. Kishore.
I can shift here. Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone, and sincere thanks to the leadership of CIDC. Sir is celebrating birthday. We didn't know that, and wish you happy birthday, sir. Thank you so much. So we chose to discuss a topic which is quite relevant and prominent now across the world and also in India than presenting something about our company. And you understand, when we discuss about a topic which relates to everyone, you understand everyone, including our own company. So brief disclaimer, views are common, publicly collected information, not personal, not about CIDC, not about Bekem, not about India, etc. Broadly, globally, if you have noticed the recent trend, post-COVID, every country could see the recovery only because of investments into infrastructure. Why, you know well. The reason being, the multiplier effect of spend in infra is the maximum than any other sector. Suddenly you have to spend 1,000 crores, you can spend it only in infra. Suddenly you want to spend in a day 2,000 crores, you can spend only in infra. No other sector has this appetite to absorb this kind of investment and create employment and see the M3, the broad money, percolate into the economy until the last stage, last part of the activity, which is, let's say, a common labor or a small MSME, micro, tiny unit, etc. That is possible only with infra. That's the reason why all the governments chose to invest only in infra and saw their economies recover from the COVID. Same is the pattern what we're seeing now. The required investment is stated to be something like $94 trillion on infra, whereas the actual spend is about $73 trillion. Very particularly, some of the key aspects of Indian construction and infra industry, all of you must be knowing, but still this makes a lot of difference if you relook at them. Number one, all the banks, all the IT, ITS, and the back office sector is heavily dependent upon. To what extent? 61% of all of the other sectors are dependent only on infrastructure, on finance. So these two are heavily dependent upon, again, infra and construction activity. And as we spoke, the M3 can catch up from M0 only with spend in infra. And this is one sector which has seen wider competition, broader competition, transparent competition, although there could be small loopholes here and there. 1.5 lakh companies, of which about 85,000 are core infra companies. That is the size of number of companies we're talking about, well within India. Then, as you know, one infra asset which is created could last for what? 30, 40, 50, 100 years and above. So that's the kind of assets what this sector is creating versus other sectors which could create a technology or some gadget or some fabric or whatever, which lasts hardly 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, max of 4 or 5 years. Yeah, this is another beautiful thing. I was just trying to understand from seniors like sir. So they were telling me, have you ever thought, where is the service going from infra and construction activity? There is no export of infra and construction activity in big magnitude. There is no import either. So all the utility, whatever is coming from the assets created from infra and construction are rendered within India, which is actually helping the economy in a multiplied way. Unlike other aspects where you import a lot of fabric, you import a lot of gold, diamonds, you import a lot of software, they're all imported. And the utility is again exported. But the net export revenue is not as much for us to celebrate. But in infrastructure, you import only equipment, that too not much in the recent past. And every utility what is served with the infra and constructed assets is within India, helping everyone within India. So we spoke this, in fact, India is evidencing urbanization trend. By 2030, it will be around 41-42%, which means quality infrastructure is required, whereas the fact is that quality infrastructure is lacking in India, and we rank 70th in 140 countries in the global index of quality infrastructure. What does that mean? It is not speaking about the high-end infra like in the country of USA and Singapore. It's speaking about a normal infra quality which is lacking in India at the moment, which we have to admit. For that, what do we need? How do we create infra assets? You need capital. How do you get capital? Savings. Savings will turn into capital, will create assets, will in turn help the GDP growth. But how is this happening? Is this happening? Not really, not much. Why? Savings to GDP used to be 39-40%, now it's less to 22.6%. Taxes to GDP, hardly 12% of which direct taxes 6.5%, indirect taxes the other balance. And borrowings to GDP, 80%, relatively healthier for an economy like India, while the developed economies are having more than 100%. But that is not something what we can celebrate because these funds aren't sufficient, aren't catering to the required volume of investments in infra and construction industry. How do you get the investments, savings from all these household savings, your saving, my saving, corporate saving, HNI saving, all of those things. Then taxes from the government, direct, indirect, and duties. Then borrowings, of course, from within India, from abroad India. And are savings sufficient? We spoke just a while before, insufficient. Are taxes elastic? No. Higher the taxes, higher is the tax and the burden for the common man, and life can't be smoother if taxes are increased further to meet your requirements. Are borrowings possible? Possible. But are they non or disinflationary? No. They are highly inflationary. And in an economy like India, if borrowings are increased, the income inequality is increasing. And the fewer companies which will bag larger value contracts are performing very well. And numerous number of companies which could not bag the big volume contracts are losing their bargaining power. So what do? The solution what worldwide and Indian economy found was in public-private partnership. So why is it required? What we discuss now. Fine. This program, titled as National Infrastructure Pipeline, was prepared, rather formulated, to consider and to give a push to all the projects of 100 crores and above. Either it is under conception, planning, implementation, or completed and then is under operation. So why is this program required? In fact, many of the leaders, and including from our company, we got the opportunity to give policy suggestions when this policy was formulated. Some of our suggestions were incorporated, and slightly disappointing that all of them are not considered, although they would have warranted inclusion. But we are hopeful that going forward, the lessons will be good and they would include more points. But for now, to understand what this could help, how this could help, presently there is a disorganized development, policy, implementation, decision-making, and fund allocation for all the projects of the 4 categories what we spoke. First 3 require funds, 4th one would give you back funds, yields. Now, by identifying all the projects of all the 22 line ministries and bringing them on the same platform and understanding what is the input from one ministry to another ministry and how the funds are being allocated without disturbing the conjointed effort of all the ministries, that is built up in National Infrastructure Pipeline, NIP, as a program. This is one program, one of the very few programs appreciated by all the parties unanimously, intentionally, unintentionally, voluntarily, or by force, whatever. And by the industry also. The only complaint, what you will have and I will have is, which we also suggest as a recommendation, the program is implemented, it's good, but the pace is lacking, and the transparency of the progress has to be improved. And occasionally, once in a while, one gentleman raises a question in the parliament and the answer is given about the status with the numbers that relate to the period at that point of time. Not over a period of time, and not to inspire the other sectors, other ministries and other corporates. That should be improved. Some of the financial sector reforms are very realistic. And being a finance person, I fell in love with those reforms. Simple, and anyone will understand. But those are not yet implemented, should be implemented. I am told government is considering them for implementation, and some committees for monitoring and for financial resources allotment and For the ministerial level coordination, they are yet to be set up, although it was required quite a long time back. We're talking about 2018-19 was a time when this program was initially conceived and then formulated. Documents were prepared. Since then, until now, the action plan has not been positive on this front. But the implementation of NIP is satisfactory, although it is lacking in terms of the pace. The quality of implementation is highly appreciable. So we should see the positive and negative both. Now, why public-private partnership? The word is axiomatic. You understand, public-private partnership. In the absence of public-private partnership, India could have been 50 years behind. But only because of this PPP concept, where it evolved over a long period of time across the world, including in India. If you understand the theme of it, you'll be very surprised. Back then, the question was, why should government spend on the capex for a project which I would never use? Then the question came, why should government spend on OPEX of a capital project which I should never use? Then came this pay as you use. And then the capital and the operating costs on every infra asset is collected from the users alone. This saved the economy with huge capital, because of which we could see the growth in other sectors. So that is the theme of this PPP. Of course, you know the ministry flow in the thing. PIU, that private investment unit, is quite active. I had personally a couple of dialogues with them. So they give audience to you, they note your sessions. To what extent they implement, we'll have to see. But then the audience is good. The quality of dialogue and the quality of time they allot to us is also very appreciable. And senior bureaucrats, senior IAS officers, they're relatively sophisticated, decent, dignified, and can understand the quality of your depth of your dialogue, and can also correspond back. So that's you get a bit of inspiration and encouragement when you speak to that kind of quality officers. So what does private do? It will mobilize the capital, it will bring the efficiency. Like today we have seen a number of awards given to all the big companies. How are they able to do this? Because they have operational efficiencies higher than what government entities had. Not to complain, there is a flexibility with the private, and they bring more capital. And then they can also identify what's required for the private and invest only on that, than going by the political mood or the other requirements. Then at the end of the period of this PPP concession, the private sector entity has to anyway transfer the asset back to the government, which is the additional advantage in most of the PPP projects. What will government do? So you will question, if private does everything, what will government do? Government will monitor. Government will be the regulator. Government will provide the support system. Government will ensure that the private will not exploit the public, the common users. That's the role what government will do. And then we'll take care of the asset at the end of the period, we'll monetize. As we see, national monetization pipeline, which is one of the steps of NIP, is also doing very well. Although pace is lacking, it's doing quite well. Why is it doing well? Because it has a sense of yield compression from the assets which have proven to be earning good returns for the economy. Fine. Now coming to the core part of sector and period-wise investments. This is the budget made for the period of 5 years from 2020 to 2005. You can see the allotment majorly was to road sector, then to, power sector, then to roads, then to urban infra. Urban infra includes your water, sanitization, and urban transportation, etc. Then to railways and others in the sequence. Now, what was this in the last 5 years? If you could see, broadly everything remained same, except that telecom has seen drastic reduction from the past 5 years to current 5 years, because it has already absorbed a lot of investments and no more further incrementally large investments are required now. That's the one reason. But then if you see the number, 57 lakh crores, now 111 lakh crores. So it has almost doubled in the last 5 years. And except in telecom, as I spoke like that. Then what was it in the previous penultimate 5 years? 24 lakh crores. It tells us, as our DG spoke, 24 lakh, then 57 lakh, then 111 lakh crores. So it's doubling every 5 years. Infrastructure sector, including construction sector, is doubling in terms of value and magnitude every 5 years. So are we here with this opportunity to discuss about it. Okay, at the time of NIP conception, these are the numbers, not very important. Now, year-wise, how are they spread? Are we on track? No. Is the quality of implementation good? Yes. Is the pace at the track? No. But is the transparency ensured? Broadly fine. And are the sectoral distribution, is the sectoral distribution happening? Broadly yes. And what are the sources that are counted on for this thing? You will be surprised to see that 28.44% directly from the public-private partnerships and another 6.5 to 9% coming from central budget where TOT projects are given coming, which means around 37-38% is coming solely from public-private partnership. Around 40% grossly, if we can say, is the future with PPP projects. What are the reforms that are suggested in NIP? Ensure long-term financing landscape. With what? Not with just banks, not with few organizations, but with NBFCs, banks, securitization proceeds, InvITs, REITs, then infrastructure debt funds, IDFs, IFs, all of these things. Then revitalize the bond and credit markets, which are very low, slow, dull in Indian economy at the moment. Establish a credit enhancement institution like a mono RAP, mono rail, and then you give mono insurance. Therefore, the credit RAP can form. When credit RAP forms, companies can borrow more, invest more, and undertake more projects and high-value projects, benefit the whole of the economy, because this is the only sector which can give higher multiplier, as we noted a while before. Then channel the insurance funds to infra by amending your insurance provisions, which is absent now. CalPERS, Ontario, Mapletree, Sarbana, Jurong, then your JICA, all of them are present in India. From abroad, all of these pension funds are present in India. Today, India's largest real estate company is not Indian company, it's Blackstone. The second largest commercial real estate owning company in India is again not Indian company, it's Brookfield. Third is Indian. Fifth, sixth, not Indians. So why in top 10, around 7 are foreign-owned companies, domiciled outside, owning assets in India? Because they are able to tap the benign cost funds coming from insurance. I subscribe to insurance. When do I get back? When I take leave from the world, not until then. So this is the kind of patient, benign cost of capital, what the insurance companies are able to tap and are able to invest into these high quality, yield compression, consistent return, and quasi-sovereign guaranteed instruments. This has to be done within India by Indian entities also. These are the recommendations what are given by the ex-bureaucrats, senior IAS officers of the committee, not by you and me. We concurred because we know what is the requirement. And recreate the DFIs. DFIs were dead. Of course, now there are 2-3, but they are still not active. So the DFIs have to be recreated, have to be revitalized, recapitalized, than burdening the commercial banks and scheduled banks, which are again short of capital. Then strengthen the municipal bond market. We do have municipal bond market, but you hardly see anything trading in the market. That has to be enlivened. Then enable the user charges to finance the infra projects, which is happening now at a very low pace and needs to be improved further. And revitalize asset monetization, which we spoke in NMP, National Monetization Pipeline. Now, quickly to understand how infra stocks are performing. So on your left side, you have Nifty 50, which took birth in 1997 approximately, and right side you have infra index, Nifty Infra, NSE Infra, which took birth in 2007. Now you can compare the returns. If you could see, the 5 years return is, let's say 13.95, here it is 21.05. Then total return 15.28, 22.75. This first point tells us infra sector is giving higher returns than the mainstream index, which is Nifty 50. Nifty 50 is among the top 10 indices of the world, the bellwether indices. And infra segment within the whole capital markets is giving higher returns. Then standard deviation, when it comes to standard deviation, the risk factor, infra is higher. You could see this here. 5 years, 19.08 is the standard deviation, 19.93. So in standard deviation terms, every 1 point makes a lot of difference. So as an investor, as a corporate, you'll be worried to invest into infra instruments unless there is a credit wrap, unless there are some reforms, unless there is some more transparency involved, unless there is a support system from the government to the private in case of shortfall of the revenues. It could be in the form of viability gap funding, intermediate viability gap funding, operational viability gap funding, or one of these kinds. But that kind of system is required to reduce the risk factor for this sector. You could see the valuation wise also, this PE is 22.88, 21.05, which means while returns are higher, stocks in infra segment are valued lower because of this risk. Look at the stock movement, the index movements, both are almost mirroring, same, which means infra stocks deserve more support, infra sector deserves more policy support, only to make that risk is lower and it need not be seen as a riskier asset. The source of funds for the private sector, these traditional sources you know, what are now required? This I could collect by speaking to many professionals, colleagues of mine and from the industry experts. There's a long-term institutional finance is absent after the debacle of ILFS, IFCI and IDBI, ICICI becoming a scheduled bank, of course Universal Bank. This stream is dead. It is not low, it is dead. That needs to be institutionalized. Of course, IFCL is there and then we have that NIAF also, but they are yet to take full shape. Then blended finance products are absent in India, which are very predominantly present in countries like Singapore and USA. Then de-risked finance loans, yield compression. Private sector is able, let's say GR Infra or Bekem or HG Infra, some of these companies are able to avail of these yield compression funds at a benign cost, lower cost. Not every company is able to do it because institutional platforms on this concept are yet to be established in India, which government has to initiate and then do it. Then of course, public-private partnership finance departments have to be established in financial institutions. My banker will hardly understand what I'm talking about when it comes to PPP. My banker understands Bekem very well. He appreciates me very well. Whatever funds I require, he is able to give. He is saying, not your 1,000 crores existing, take 2,000 crores more. We don't bother what is the project, but don't ask me further reduction in interest rate just because it is PPP. We hardly understand what PPP is. We understand you, whatever you command as interest rate, that we are happy to give. Volume, we can write any amount of check. But in the name of PPP, kindly don't come and tell that there is competition, therefore you have to reduce the interest rate further. Not possible because we hardly understand. That stigma, that limitation has to be removed. ESG linked coupon on lending, then ESG compliance will increase, unlike now forcing it in the name of compliance. Then simplified InvIT scheme. InvITs are now, so InvITs are now in vogue, but they need a bit of simplification for administration. Then standard receivable securitization, which is happening but not standardized. Support from infra funds, that is required. Then secondary loan market association was established. It has taken birth and it is doing well, but is doing very, very slowly. It needs to be reinforced. Then what are the new tax instruments required? Tax-free bonds with comparable coupons. Tax-free bonds come at a lower coupon. You are not excited. Then quasi-equity participating bonds are required. Sector-specific flexi bonds, absolutely absent in India, required. Project-specific bonds, earlier they were there for some Narmada River Valley development, need to be included. Then new patterns, some sporadic to periodical, alternate to regular, structured to standard, specialized normal, then tax to return based instruments. These are the suggestions which I spoke in the thing. And sincere thanks